Most people don't decide to attend a conference when they see the registration page, right? They decide earlier while they're searching, watching, listening, and forming trust. And this is a really important thing because this is how marketing happens these days. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm joined by Nyle Bayer, CMO at Future Proof. What a great gig, by the way, Nyle.
Thank you.
I'm sure you feel the same. If you've seen what they're doing leading up to Future Proof Citywide 2026, the content, the video, the momentum, a lot of that runs through Nyle and his team. And we're going to dig into how being found and trusted happens before the first click and how they're using conversations and video to drive growth around Citywide and their other events. Nyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Really excited to be here. Let's get into it. Thank you for the intro. And for the record, I do think I have the best job in the industry, but I digress. I apologize. I almost posted that the other day on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure it's right up there.
I would not argue with you. And I don't think it's going to get any less great.
I hope so.
So social proof is a really important part of marketing, as we all know. And you guys have over 2,000 YouTube subscribers. Not easy to get advisors to click subscribe. I think we can both attest to that. But published over 436 videos, 175,000 views. That's over 400 views for video, which is really good. And I can tell that seems to be growing at a fast pace. LinkedIn, you guys have over 18,000 followers on your company profile, which is pretty impressive because those are purely organic. 6,000 IG followers, 6,000 X followers. Here's what's most impressive, though. You have so many employees, partners, friends of Future Proof who have massive networks or even small ones that significantly expand your reach. And that is really, truly impressive. And that's what really great brands do. You guys are doing something I'm really passionate about here, everybody here at ProudMouth, which is using conversations and video as a core part of your marketing. And I'm seeing you unpack that with speakers, attendees, and really using conversations to drive the growth of what you're doing and to build up the whole vibe around Future Proof. Can you tell us a little bit about how you intentionally do that and how you're making that happen?
Yeah, specifically on the video front, we just have so much great content capture that we're running either at the event or in the conversations that we're having outside of the event. It's been an evolution, I would say, for us to determine what our best way to communicate with the community is, where to reach people, how to reach people, what the best point in time is for that. So it's not something that just, it was like this perfect thought that we had and then we started going and executing on it. We've definitely had a bunch of failed experiments along the way. But essentially, to your point, we've kind of narrowed the focus as far as just social, thinking about social as a distribution channel to our community, which is a big one. And narrowing in what are the platforms that work for us and don't work for us. I mean, we'll try everything as it's released. I remember the day that Threads came out, for example, we jumped on it. Even like Sora 2, when it came out, we jumped on it. All the different social platforms. And what we've learned for us is that really it's LinkedIn primarily is where the community is at, especially over the last few years as the kind of puck has just gone in that direction. And then YouTube as a distribution source for video itself is very powerful, not only in just having our own channel and discoverability on that platform, but being able to use video just as it's embedded there as a tool to be able to go in all these other places, whether it's listed or unlisted videos, which we have a lot of as well. So initially it was like, we're having these great conversations, specifically post, let's say, festival to where we are today. Matt's been having a lot of conversations, all of us at the team really, but as we do this research about what's happening inside of wealth and investment management with the shifts that are happening with AI specifically right now, it was like, why don't we just capture these? We have all the tools to be able to do it. Put segments of the conversations directly on the feed with kind of the zero-click approach of we're just going to hit you with valuable insights, get you behind the curtain on the conversations that we're having so that we can really start igniting the community around these talking points and, see how that works. So really it was kind of initially an experiment. How could we use these conversations, download transcripts, transform those transcripts into bite-sized pieces of content that we float out in other places like blog posts, How do we just stack, 5 things in one and see if it works? And how do we do it efficiently? But then also, how do we make an impact with it? So that's kind of been our video approach, I would say, on social specifically. The other side of it is just incredibly important for us to capture what's happening at the event in video and photography, because the event itself, the experience of being outside, how the community comes together, all those things are extremely unique. And if we don't hit those content capture points, it's a miss for the rest of the years. We try to describe it to people and they just have no visualization of what this looks like. Over half of our audience for almost every event is brand new. And so we never take that for granted and just assuming that they know what we're talking about when we're describing the event. So it's just incredibly important to have visuals in particular to complement the ways that we're, attracting people and recruiting people to come to the event, experience it. So that's where video becomes extremely valuable as well. And then just this knowledge transfer that happens from the content sessions that are there to be able to find them for people who maybe they're at the event and they missed one session, they want to go revisit it. Because we are festival style, all stages are open at the same time. Vendor booths are all open nothing closes down. So, being able to have that for our attendees is a big deal. But then also, really it's just we're here for wealth management in general to evolve and investment management. And so that's why it's there, because you can watch it even if you don't attend the event. So it's kind of like the high level on the video approach. Not sure if that's what you were looking for, but trying to cover all bases there of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Absolutely. I noticed that, you just mentioned that you try to put your CEO front and center. Some companies their CEOs hide behind other people in the company doing this, and he's fairly front and center. So how important do you feel that is?
I think it's incredibly important. And it doesn't have to be the CEO. Some CEOs just like being in the background. Our CEO in particular, Matt, is just really insightful, loves having these conversations. He's naturally having them anyways, specifically as he's building out, he's running point on all of the content and the agenda and all the speakers and just generally the research that goes into the themes. So if he's, I've always just been scratching my head. I'm like, man, we're talking to the best people in the industry. We're talking to them about the topics that everybody wants to hear about. Why don't we just expose this and kind of do the build in public approach? And for us, it's worked out very well. I do think that each CEO is just a little bit different, has different strengths and weaknesses. Not all of them are going to be, speaking on the mic and on video. But if they are, and you're not using it, I think that's where it's like, what are you doing here? We need to be able to capture this and put it out so that people know what we're working on and why we're working on it. And for an event in our space in particular, it's just a no-brainer. So that was kind of the thought process behind it. And Matt just jumped right into it. So, he was really excited about it too. And I think there's an important value of not only just coming to your CEO with ideas that you would like them to execute as a marketer, but ones that excite them, because there's nothing going to be the same energy that comes to the table if they're excited about it versus they're just doing it because, their marketing team asked them to. So you got to think about that. Like, how do we come up with an idea that's good, but also is exciting, that'll get somebody passionate about something, and that'll come through the screen. So that was kind of there's multiple angles there, but that's a big one. And Matt's great at it. Like he's crushing it. So it makes our lives easier for sure.
I think that may be the key point right there. That you got to want to do this. You got to want to enjoy it, and then I think also be prepared to have great conversations. And you guys are, killing it with all three of those.
Thank you.
This funny story. We've been ProudMouth as it exists. We've been around for 8 years, and I don't remember when it was, but we had this client who was trying to articulate the value that he was getting from working with us, and they used the word credibility at scale. And now we like to use the word trust at scale, but that's really, you're talking about the CEO, the founder, who sounds like they're touching a lot of things there to make sure that it stays what they want. And in the early years, that's really important to make sure that you build something that is exactly what you wanted, even with all these, smart people like you around, just to stay involved and excited and passionate, which he clearly is. But I think that's a huge thing to be able to take, that's a big part of what content marketing is, right? It's have one conversation and then push it out to the world. No timestamp really. It's, if it's evergreen, especially, it can travel and have value for a long time. And then, like you said earlier, you can cut it up into other pieces of content. And this is really, maybe one of the most important things for people to listen to here is no matter what size company you are, the scale of content makes a heck of a lot of sense. Fair to say?
Absolutely.
So, you got to be paying attention to this and doing it. A lot of these videos feel like a lot less promotional and a lot more like community building, which you've already mentioned several times today. How do you see the content supporting the networking and relationships before, during, and after events? You mentioned photos. Like your stuff is such a visual experience.
Yeah, I think like it is fundamentally critical for us to be able to have on site to be able to go back and explain to people. Like I said, like that's the biggest piece. If you looked at any of our sales materials in particular, they're just flooded with pictures and way less words because, pictures say a million words, say 1,000 words. They really do for us in particular. And I would say, just to even back up to your previous point, what's a good point of reference for us that's really unique, and maybe it's a way for people just to dip their toes in the water. Everybody's different. Every company's situation is different. But, being able to ship media is great because, it's a one-to-many approach, like you said. So that's the scale component. The other component that's fantastic is just the compounding effect of people who are subscribed to something. And that can continue to grow over long periods of time to where, you have an audience size that you didn't even think about was going to be that big when you first started out. I'd say something that we're not doing right now is having that. So, if you're poking holes in our strategy, that's a big one. A lot of our, we're intentionally saying, hey, let's just go directly to social with a lot of these video clips. We're not stacking them up in a way that you can subscribe and go find them in some chronological order or find them by topic. They're really just organically out there in the wild, and we're shipping a ton. I mean, as much as maybe 6-7 videos a day that are going out. And so that's kind of the counter to this. Is it is a little bit of an experiment of how do we help people just stay on the timeline that they want to be on, give them nuggets of information. If they watch it, they'll click through. If they click through, I'm going to retarget them with ads and all sorts of stuff, so it works out in our favor in other directions. But it's truly a demand generation approach that I would say is departing a little bit from the previous model. But, for us, it's probably we're testing it, and then it could launch into a podcast. It could launch into something that's more uniform. I think what's unique is that we're in the middle of a lot of other great podcasts that promote us anyway. So we don't necessarily need one to fulfill that utility function that another company might need immediately, just because we're unique in that order. But it could lead to that. But obviously, for example, like the Compound and Friends, we're not going to try to compete with them. They're going to crush us every single time. And so why us start a podcast when we can, they'll promote us and we're just fine. So there's angles to how we are as a business that are just totally unique. And I wouldn't write that blueprint for every other business. But it is kind of interesting to look at and say, hey, they're doing this and it's working pretty well. So how does that work in this new paradigm where people can find information, find video, connect with people right on the timeline. And then when they're ready to make that jump, you're the first person in mind of, oh, I want to go to an event. This is the one I've been seeing a bunch. So now I'm ready to go convert. To your point that you opened up with, it's not the landing page that's selling them. It's all these other extra points and validation that's happening and, seeing themselves in the conversations that are happening and things like that.
I think that last note, seeing themselves, is really interesting. My next question is, do you think that all the pre-conversations you're having and the topics and who's involved in these conversations, do you think the quality of those conversations change the conversations people have when they get there?
I hope so. I mean, I don't know yet because we just rolled this out after the festival in 2025. Mm-hmm. So this will be the first event where we've really had a content marketing strategy or motion, not even a strategy, I would say. It's like a motion that has impacted the event. I think for us, it's been really useful in landing this narrative that Future Proof Citywide is all about AI this year. Last year, it was not that way. So it had a different event theme entirely. The festival is built specifically for RIAs And that's the ecosystem that it's built for. Relatively capped at 5,000 people, can't get much bigger because we can't build more hotels. Citywide is able to grow, let's say, to 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, no problem, because Miami is built for that infrastructure. So it's more so not only for the REA community, which is kind of the core of what we've built, but it's also for the broader wealth and investment management industries. AI being the theme of this event that'll carry this event for any number of years. So we really needed to use content in a way to say, no, this event is different this year. If you had previously attended, we have to disassociate from what your preconceived notions of what this event is going to be in 2026. We need to separate that, build our new narrative. So in that way, to your point of has it successfully helped people show up and have the right conversations? I guess I would say yes already, in that people know that this is the AI event of the year. It's the largest, biggest event focused on that theme. And I would say that the content marketing in particular with the videos that we've been putting out have been a huge tailwind for making sure that we land that narrative with people and they understand what we're building and why we're building it. So absolutely, to that point, obviously the conversations that are happening on site haven't happened yet, but they have helped shape the agenda, I would say, and kind of pointing us in different North Stars of where is, the ball rolling to, so to speak, with AI and wealth and investment management. What are both sides of the conversation saying? And how do we make sure that everybody's involved? Because it's not about our opinion. It's about bringing together the community, which has conflicting opinions, and letting the best, ideas win.
So Future Proof is really a live lab
Yeah.
of what's going on. So what conversations are you intentionally trying to create at Future Proof Citywide that aren't happening elsewhere in the industry?
We really want to, at Citywide in particular, there's 4 key frameworks that we're going after as far as just how we're thinking about the entire event, not just the content itself, but the entirety of it, the floor plan, the way things are laid out, which sponsors are where, what activations are happening, when the meetings are occurring, when experiences are occurring, what dinner selections that we have, what are the themes of those dinners. So it's not just the content themes, it's a whole framework that we built into the event. And it's about 4 areas, which is invest with AI and what are the impacts of AI that are having in the investment community, from the research level all the way up to the execution level, to the infrastructure and the plumbing that's happening across the industry, not just being in chat LLMs asking them what a global asset allocation should be for somebody. So invest with AI is a big deal. Build with AI is just all about building the future, more so for product leaders, technologists, innovation teams, what's happening, under the hood that they're having. So in this, we've created an AI sandbox to where we're going to have a lot of wealth management, investment management teams come out and literally present what they've built and why, which I think is unique to this community. It's very open, very abundant mindset. The more that we share, the bigger the pie grows for everybody, as opposed to the zero-sum mindset. Grow with AI is all about, how do we use technology and specifically AI to be able to make us more efficient and more effective in all of our growth motions, whether that's sales, marketing, CS, all the way across the board. And then live with AI is just generally our lifestyle. How does this new tool that's, stuck to our sides, so to speak, our live assistant that's here with us 24/7, to a point where it's a surveillance state in some areas, and other areas it's a tool. But how do we live with this thing? How do we go into this environment and not only ourselves live with it, but how do we coach our clients to live through it to be more effective in their own lives, the end clients? So those are the 4 frameworks that we've been really speaking to, that we've set up the event. So you're going to see stages that are built for Live with AI. You're going to see sessions that are built for it, but also you're going to see interactions and brand activations that fall into these different categories, and sponsors that are thinking about, our industry companies that are like, hey, we're building cool stuff in investing, or we're building new infrastructure for companies to land on, which is happening left and right. Things like the AI demo drop. So all these different themes kind of build into the event itself. It brings people who are thinking about these things in their own firms. It's been kind of crazy to see the audience stats come in. It's like this hockey stick parabolic curve that happens towards the registration deadline. But it's close to 90% of all the attendees are decision makers for their firms. It's something like, the average firm with less than 5 billion in assets is close to 800 million in AUM. So, these are larger firms generally, um, and the decision makers of those firms that are coming to have these conversations. And really, everybody's showing up with curiosity because who knows where this thing is going. So when we set the foundations, we think about the frameworks to discuss them, attract the community, and here it goes.
Yeah, it's impressive. Thanks for sharing all those themes, because they really do set the table for everybody to know what the conversations are going on, and be prepared to go win. If someone comes to Future Proof and does it right, what do they leave with that actually changes their business?
Man, I think right now it's you want to leave with clarity about the future, about your roadmap for yourself and your firm with AI. Clarity is a big one. The other side is just connections, building relationships with the people that can help you on that roadmap, which is what our networking programs are for. So we have something like 20,000 square feet, almost a football field and a half, that is dedicated to one-to-one meetings that are mutually selected, double opt-in. And so this is just making it easier to meet new people, getting out of our echo chambers, getting out of the same circles that we've always been in to meet new people that can help us on this roadmap to give us clarity. So clarity, connections is another big one. I would say, confidence in where this is headed right now and what your next step are another big one. And I just hit 3 C's, didn't I? So that's the jackpot. So clarity, connections, confidence are really what I'm hoping are the outcomes that people walk away from this event with, specifically about how AI is going to impact themselves and their business until they come back to the festival, because who knows how fast this thing is moving.
One of the things, you and I were having like a little pre-interview, decide what we're going to talk about today, which is a great conversation. And one of the things that came up, I'm gonna name drop a company, and I mean to do this, but don't mean to single out anybody else or leave out anybody else. But you used a company called you talked about a company called WealthReach, who's an AI intent company for prospecting. And I know that there's other companies in the space who've been funded and they haven't. How do you deal with the democratization of showing enough of these companies at your event who maybe don't have the funding to show up? I know this is a surprise question for you, but I'm curious how you feel about that.
Again, it's community driven. So if the noise is being made and people are interested in it, we want people to come and be able to discover it. Our event is really unique in that we have the full spectrum of companies there. You're going to see, let's say, like the blue chip companies, the State Streets, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks, the Goldman Sachs, the ones that everybody knows, literally your grandma knows, will have amazing activations. You could build relationships with them, all the way to the companies that you've never heard of before that might not even have funding yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to think about, how do we create a space that fits everybody together and it makes sense? So something that we started 2024 is the FinTech Alley at the festival. And so that was a specific area with kiosks to where startups could come in, give them pricing for space that makes sense for a startup that wouldn't make sense for a mature company, and allow kind of this specific space for people to be able to come in and experiment and have conversations with companies that might not be nearly as mature as a company with a longer tenure. And that's been a great way for the startups to be able to have access to the largest event in the space, and just make it economically attainable for them, and then also make it so that if people are interested, they can go and discover those companies when they come to our event. So we never want to exclude the fresh ideas, the innovative ideas that are coming into our world. We also have created a different demo drop so people can submit their new innovations every event that we have to be able to present during that session specifically. And those are 2 different ways that we have thought about how can startups come into this event and have a successful time while they're here. In addition, we have startup passes so that if they don't want to, have a space or they might not have been selected for the presentation on the demo drops, that they can still come in at a discounted rate compared to a company that is much more mature. So we're trying to always think about how do we create access points for innovation and innovative companies that might be new as well, to be able to grow. And we've seen success from those companies across the board. Um, Trying to think of ones that we've had that have really picked up. I mean, to Wealth Reach's example, their direct competitor being Finney, they were on our stage and they announced funding, shortly after. I wouldn't say that we're directly responsible for it by any means. They've crushed it and done the work. But we are creating the stage for those companies that we see that momentum happening for. Before that was financial, they had a similar momentum. Wealth.com has been on our stage before they got, into their later series rounds. So there's a lot of companies that you'll see that we just see the momentum happening, and really they earned it. It's us getting out of the way of them and, what they're achieving for their own selves. It's easy for us to kind of see the momentum and just say, all right, we need to create space for this to have conversations around. I don't know if that gets to exactly what you're looking for, but let me know.
Yeah, no, you're building you're building the platform and the event for people, and you're giving them options. We feel it like ProudMouth. We're not a huge company. We're not funded or anything like that, and I feel like we can go there. The breakthroughs are an amazing opportunity, affordable versus having a booth, having a bigger presence. So this year we've piggybacked on the CMO Collective. That intentionally set up. We're super grateful for them doing that and making ProudMouth a part of that, which is a great opportunity for us to meet, CMOs and talk about what we're talking about today, right? How do you take one piece of content and turn it to a whole bunch of pieces of content and flood the right places? When I say flood, I don't mean in a bad way. I mean the right amount, but that's a big deal. So those are great stories and great examples of how you guys are being true to the marketplace and letting it kind of figure itself out. But the reality is people have to come and make stuff happen, right? You're not making it happen for them. You give them a platform, give them an opportunity, find their way in and make it happen. And I think that's a great stance to take and a great business model for you guys to continue growing when everybody feels like they got a shot to make an impact in their business by hanging out at Future Proof.
Absolutely. I think for us, it's just being a good steward of the whole ecosystem of wealth and investment and everybody involved. And, it's a tough thing to do. Everybody has their individual opinions, but really it's removing our own opinions most of the time and seeing what the community is saying and allow that to come forward. And that's a winning strategy every time. I think the other side that's unique to us is we don't have any pay to play. We're one of the few events that we don't have a product. Like the event is the product for us. That is our business. Or almost every other event in the space is tied to a company that's selling something else, or they're selling stage time, or there's all these other components of the event that kind of subsidize it itself. For us, we need to put on the best show possible. That's how we make money. And if the show sucks, then the business is out of business. So it's really important for us to think in that way. And, like the Munger quote, you follow the incentives, you'll understand people's behavior. I just butchered that, but it's along those lines. And so for us, it's, how do we continue to be good stewards of what's happening in the community? Because that's the winning strategy. And as soon as we turn it towards how do we get the most, sponsor dollars for breakout sessions, that's when I think we've lost the plot for our event specifically. I do think that can work for other companies. Obviously it does. And you can have a sponsored session that has great detail in it. But for us, that's just not what we do. And we don't even have breakout sessions. So it's not really a thing anyways. But staying independent, kind of being that Switzerland, allows us to think this way is kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. So what are advisors, what are they hungry for? What are you seeing in person? What do advisors want right now? Better planning, better growth, better tech leverage? What is it you're seeing?
I think all of it. What's interesting, so when you complete a registration form for any Future Proof event, they're all the same. I try to keep the data as consistent as possible. But we ask people what their areas of interest are and, what are they most excited about? Little check boxes, multiple check boxes. What do you want to do? And, the number one thing that all the advisors say is network and make new connections. It's not the sessions. It's not, everything else. That's the number one thing. And that's what I think makes Future Proof unique. We have engineered serendipity, I would say, with our networking program. So you can come in, you build a profile, you look at everybody else, you say, hey, this is somebody who's interested with me. They do the exact same thing. And then we take everybody who says, I'm interested in that person and this person, and we see what all the matches are. And then we tell you who the matches are. And then you select out of all the people that you match with who you want to meet with. So that part's really cool. And I think it speaks to the number one reason that people want to go to events. I think previously people thought it was for the sessions, and the sessions are great. But really what brings everybody together is networking, growing as a community. And I think that just all tides rise with that. And, me being relatively introverted, I think I kind of oscillate on that scale. Going to a new event and meeting people quickly just makes the next few days so much better. And so that's a really powerful thing. Outside of that, I'm super impressed generally with how the advisor community has taken a lot of these new tools that AI has introduced, specifically like vibe coding, and are starting to build tools left and right. Um, we had, as I've mentioned on this podcast a few times already, the AI demo drop. People submit, their company for, to present in that session. And we had more companies that I've never heard of than any other, fintech demo drop or any other demo drop session that we've ever had. And it was this moment where it was just like, holy shit, there is a wave of new tools coming directly from the operators. It's not from, these VC groups that are doing research, they're interviewing advisors and figuring out what their pain points are, and then creating a tool that they think is along those pain points only to go out of business because they weren't going to use it anyways. These are the real operators that are sitting there going, oh, I have this problem. I'll go solve it right now. And they're building all sorts of tools. And I'm discovering them more and more every day. And so that's the part that I think is just incredible to see. I think that there is a tailwind that no one is prepared for in the amount of tools and ambitions that people express now that they have this co-pilot that can really bring it to life. And it might not be a perfect product. There's a lot of, vaporware that's built in, vibe coding tools, but at least they can get to a proof of concept. They can figure out and share, is this a good idea or a bad idea? And if it's a bad idea, people are going to tell them pretty quick. If it's a great idea, they'll tell them that quickly too. And they can go find somebody who knows how to develop it and really bring it to an enterprise grade product. But that's the part that I think I'm most excited about is you have these really smart advisors that just haven't had the tools to be able to express their desires. And so they've shipped it out to technology providers to express that for them. But now they can do it themselves in a lot of areas. So I think this time next year, when we look back, it's the landscape, I think, will change a lot. And as far as the personalization of technology for how you're using it to solve problems in your firm and the speed at which you can create things and ship. Now, I know that introduces a lot of other problems, around like PII and whether or not people are building tools that are, have the security that we need. And I think that's an issue to solve once you get to, like I said, the enterprise grade version of it. But when it comes to getting off a blank page, that stage is kind of been solved for, and it's really exciting to see what people are coming up with.
Do you ever see Future Proof being an incubator to help all these vibe coders? Because at some point you'd think helping them with like a collective where people kind of come in and see, because most people can't take my experience with vibe coding on my own is there's a point where, like you said, like from concept to making it reality with all the security and just those fine details. So you test it, this thing works and you don't have to worry about it and you can, collect money from it and so on and so forth. Is that something that you see in Future Proof's future?
I don't know if we would take it in-house, but I definitely feel like we're trying to create the community that allows all these connections to be made. If you do your homework and you have an idea, you've built it to a certain stage where you can share, let's say, specs about what this idea would look like on a roadmap. When you come to Future Proof and you register for the networking program, let's say you're looking for a developer or a front-end designer or a marketing mind to help you with go to market, or you're looking for a product manager to be able to help you think through all these steps, or, all these various roles that you would need to be able to bring a concept to life at enterprise value, all those folks are at our event. So you'd look for them in the networking program, you find them, you want to meet with them. And we have that ability for you to be able to do so. So to your point, we're not going to probably incubate a project from idea to launch, or, idea to even like a seed invest worthy idea. But we will create the environment for somebody to do that if they're thinking smart. And if you approach it like you're going to an attorney, when I go to an attorney or a CPA, I want to be as prepared as possible, right? Because it just costs so much in hourly, and whatever the retainer is, they're just really good at hitting it every time. I don't know. It's a special talent. I assume they teach them in law school. But if you think about Future Proof in the same way of, if I'm really prepared, I have my idea built out so that I can take it to professionals and be extremely efficient with their time. You could get 24, 15-minute meetings with these folks. You could really quickly suss out your idea and the connections that you would need to bring it to the next stage. So in that way, I guess it is kind of by proxy an incubator.
I'm sorry I didn't recognize, if you've said it earlier, that you guys were doing that, but that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's really neat. Yeah, I guess because of my perspective, when I'm in your tool, setting a profile and what we want, I didn't clue into that, but that is really neat. I'm going to pull us back a little bit into the marketing side of this.
Okay.
It'll be kind of a note. What's the one move an advisor can make in the next 30 days to become more visible, more trusted, and referable? Speaking, to our audience, yours and ours, what do you think? What would you recommend they do to get started? Because they have to do this for themselves, one would think.
It's such a great question because everybody is so unique. I always start with the foundation. And the foundation to me is like your website is your digital storefront. Make sure whatever you say out in the marketplace, what happens if someone thinks that this is a great idea? Like, let's assume this works. Let's assume you write a blog post and people love it. And then they go to your website and it says something totally different. So I start with the website. Let's simplify as much as possible. This is a service-based business. It doesn't really, I said opposite. It can be totally evergreen on your website for the most part. Who you are, what do you do, who do you serve, what does it cost, how do they get in touch? And maybe you don't even include the what does it cost, but just who are you, who do you serve, what's the process, and then how do we get started? So if those things are covered on your website, fantastic. Now you're ready to go to step 2, which is being able to pick one channel that you love, one channel, to our earlier point, that you're excited about. You're not doing because other people are telling you that this is the best thing to do. It could be writing a book, which might be, most people would say is the worst thing to do, because who reads books anymore? Everybody is, reading summaries of podcasts at this point, like the amount of compression knowledge that's happening. But who cares what everybody else says? If you're excited about writing a book, go after that, because I could think of 12 different ways to take that book. And then it could lead you to the next thing that could catch momentum. Each chapter could be a blog post. Each, blog post could be read into a video essay. Each video essay could be chopped up into bite-sized segments that then start compounding on that thought process that leads somebody to reading your book. And when they do read the book, they just invested a ton of time. They're the most qualified prospect that you could have. So really, just to back up, it starts with your website. Make sure your messaging is exactly what you want, is consistent. And then from there, pick the thing that you're really most excited about, because that will have its own momentum built into it. And that's going to lead you, the road's going to open up for you. And Emerson said that when you get on that path, there's going to be these ornaments that light it up that you couldn't see before. It's like the sun as it shines across the earth as it passes through the daytime. It's going to light it up as it goes. And the same thing with where you head in your content strategy. That light is going to shine as you go down that path. You won't see it until you get started. So get started on one that you're excited about, because it'll lead to something next.
Yeah, that is great advice. You mentioned that the website doesn't sound like, a blog that you wrote or a podcast that you did. We see that all the time, particularly with LinkedIn profiles too, where somebody tries to, be really cute or super or too professional on their LinkedIn profile, and it doesn't have anything to do with their voice that that they read somebody else. We actually created a service because we saw it basically
Mm.
incorrect with all of our clients, so we started fixing that, which has been really interesting because and what people don't realize now is a big part of this is being searchable as much as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
people search on LinkedIn. It's becoming its own, it's not a small search engine. It's certainly not YouTube or Google or AEO, but it's certainly there. It's certainly significant enough to pay attention to. If somebody was looking for somebody on LinkedIn, would they ever find you
Right.
for what you do and who you are? And would it sound like you? Or does it sound like, you know, you hired somebody to write it, like a professional resume or something like that? So it's a big deal. That's great advice. Yeah.
Like marketing 2.0 in this too is the other side of your website doesn't have to be the same all the time.
Yeah.
There's great examples of you have a marketing theme for a quarter and you're going to change the copy on your website to fit that theme. And it might even be like a very specific target that you're happening. Nobody notices that except for the people who go to your website. And why are they going to your website? It should fit the target that you're hitting. So all the time I see that too, where larger companies with a more robust marketing team, they're very smart about rotating their website to fit whatever campaigns that they have going on. And that's, step 2 of this process. A, get it down to where it's evergreen, you feel good about it, you could forget about it and it's correct. The next level is once you get going with your marketing schemes, you start tailoring the website to change with your marketing campaigns, and that will help your conversion rates.
I think one of the most important words that I love to talk about, I don't often enough, is momentum. I think so many people need to do what they can. What you talked about, and not only is momentum, you talked about passion. Do something you're gonna enjoy. Don't worry as much about what somebody says is the place that you need to be. Find the place or do the thing that you're going to get. That passion is going to drive you to follow through with it because that's where you can create momentum. And then once you do that well, momentum, like you said, the light will shine on the things that you have to do. But the mentality or the framework that you keep talking about is do something you like, do it because that'll help you be consistent and follow through with it. And then that'll open up other top opportunities to multiply and be in more places. And that is the simplicity of marketing. And if you just start there, it'll feel a lot more doable than if you're thinking of like this big, rich strategy or see where somebody else is at and you're comparing yourself, right? We know comparison is the thief of joy, one of many things, or focus, or getting started is another thing
Mm-hmm.
it steals. So as you look ahead to this year's event, what are you most excited about? Either in terms of conversations and community, which you already talked a lot about. So maybe it's just this last thing is what are you building next? Beyond the obvious, what everybody knows.
Yeah, right now, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, but citywide, I would love to see it getting to the South by Southwest size, that it becoming something that is absolutely massive and, is a big shift for the entire industry beyond just the RIA side. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, even if you look at how many firms there are, 400, 500,000 registered reps in our industry, there's a lot of room to grow. And while a lot of people know Future Proof, it is still very small inside of, the larger, let's say, sector of finance. And so that's where it's how do we break into these larger and larger communities to where we can all benefit from this type of event and thinking and community that goes into, the private side, it goes into infrastructure side, it goes into all different aspects of where money moves throughout this pipes. So if we think about money as a tool, where's it really going before it gets to the end client? And after it gets to the end client, where's it going as well? And how do we get all these players involved so that we can be talking together as one community? So that's what I'm most excited about, in the next few years that we'll be building to is how do we expand the scope to make all ships rise with the tide? And I think Future Proof Citywide has that ability because of the infrastructure that's built into Miami. I mean, this is like the epicenter of Miami Beach and during spring break, essentially. So it's this fantastic location, literally on the beach, but then goes into historic Miami Beach and then starts going into Miami proper. So we just have this infrastructure ready for the community to show up. And the team has absolutely been cranking from working with the city and all the different vendors. It's a whole different build out there. So that's what I'm most excited about. And we've really, right now, have improved the floor plan dramatically year over year. We learned a lot of things about building on the sand specifically. So that's something that just personally I'm really excited to see as we show up, and just, how to navigate it, where different flooring is put down and why. Like there's all these little details that we've really, have put in a ton of effort to be able to see through. So those are kind of the big things for me. I have a bunch of stuff in stealth though that I just can't share. But maybe this time next year we'll be able to talk about it.
That's good. What I like to share with everybody about going to Future Proof is I felt like it was the most open networking event. People were there to talk. People were open. They were there. They were ready. And I thought that was great. I've been to events where people wanted swag. This is not like that. This is people want to talk. Conversations were fantastic. There are so many opportunities and places to have a conversation, right? There were people who had decks above their booths, so you could go up and watch the sunrise or sunset or take pictures over the entire event. That was really neat. There were just so many opportunities, and you guys have done an incredible job, and it sounds like you're working on improving it even more. So did you have any final thoughts? I mean, I kind of teed them up.
No, that was great. Okay. That was great. The swag collectors are great too. It's a good idea to, on the last day, do the swag collecting, because that's when the vendors are like, take it, please. We don't want to take it back with us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really want to say this, one of my favorite swag things, because then I know I'm going to create more traffic to that booth, but Vanguard had some really cool sunglasses, and they're actually nice. That was pretty neat. Wear those all the time, and won't forget that, they had something that neat there. Go have but there's so many booths, so many professionals, so many colleagues to go have conversations with. So anybody go and absolutely take the time to make sure you're ready to chat and just walk up and talk to people. There's lines. There's not a lot of lines, which is really great. I know love to put that a lot. Like when you go to eat, you can get something within a couple minutes or a couple seconds. And that's a big deal at a big, massive event like this. And I was really impressed with how quickly you could move along. Concert was amazing. Loved Bush last year at Huntington Beach.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of speakers. We had to move the DJ off the stage because of how much they had in their back line. It was a lot of amps. It was pretty impressive.
No, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was an incredible show. So just for our listeners, ProudMouth will be at Future Proof Citywide. We'll be at probably all their events, to be quite honest. We'd love to meet you. And Nyle will be there. And now you know his face and his voice and how intelligent he is. So you got to go up and talk to him and make deals and tell him how you're going to bring your entire company next year and more people on your staff. ProudMouth's going to be bringing a couple people from our team who haven't been to this event. I'm so excited for them to experience it.
Love it.
So if you want to learn more about what ProudMouth is, come talk to us there. See everybody at Future Proof Citywide. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirk. This was really cool.
Hey, don't touch that dial yet. Before you go, get a copy of the tools and strategies to rise above the noise shared by our guests in this week's playbook. To claim your free playbook and access our growing collection, go to proudmouth.com/playbook. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Here's to rising above the noise, one episode at a time.